PodcastCoug Season 2, Episode 11.
You're listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, PodcastCoug.
Hello, everybody. Hey, welcome back to the PodcastCoug. I am James Laurie, the PodcastCoug, and you are listening to the PodcastCoug, all things Cougar football, 30 minutes of Coug Talk, where we're going to talk about the previous game against Stanford and our upcoming game in Salt Lake against the Utes of Utah. And so here we are, Week 11. Luke Falk broke the Pac-12 all-time record for passing yards Saturday against Stanford and then on Monday he put an end to what was the conference most impressive streak in 2017. What is that? Of course, that was Khalil Tate, Arizona quarterback Khalil Tate, ending a 4-week reign as the offensive player of the week. And Falk was named the offensive player of the week on Monday. So that Tate had 4 in a row. Luke got his on Monday. Tate was setting records back from October 9th. Nothing new to Luke, though. He was 3 or 4 more games as a Coug, named player of the week, Pac-12 player of the week, after his first career start in 2014 against Oregon State. And then he won it for the 6th time on Monday. So good going, Luke. He broke Sean Mannion's conference record for career passing yards. He's now 13,800, something like that, including a 94-yard touchdown drive that allowed the Cougs to beat Stanford. And we're talking about Stanford last week. Yep. Must win. It was a must win to stay alive in the North. Cougs rose to the occasion. They stepped up, literally shutting down Bryce Love, right? The running back, hanging on for a critical win in Pullman, Dad's weekend. Of course, one game at a time, 24-21 win at that time. Stanford was number 18. Hey, how about those Montlake guys? They have not played a ranked team all season long. They haven't won or beat or played a ranked team. At that time, Stanford was number 18, and we'll take it, right? Senior day at Martin. Cougs, again, this is the first time they beat Stanford in 10 years at home. Now, last year we beat them in Palo Alto, but it was 2007. And we're keeping the North title hopes alive. We earn the right. We're in control. We earn the right to maintain control of our destiny, right? And we're in it was literally a 3-game playoff race. We've got to win them all right, to get to the championship. Now, also, as you know, that this was we're 7-0 at home. So we were 7-0 at home at Martin, first time in school history. And the games it was a must win for both teams, right? Cougs are 8-2. It was the strength of their defense that held literally the nation's top rusher, Bryce Love, to a season low of 69 yards on 16 carries. And, got a huge late interception by Frankie Luvuu to ice the win. We're going to talk about Luvuu in a minute. And, of course, playing with his – but before we talk about Luvuu, what I was thinking about Bryce Love, this was as low at 69 yards. All right. Now Montlake, the Huskies have got they've got Stanford on Friday night. Okay. Just on Friday night. We're going to see what Bryce Love does to the Huskies. Now, he was coming off of an injury. He didn't play on the Oregon State game that they barely and luckily won. So we're going to see if Bryce Love is healthy or not for the Huskies Friday night. I think that injury had some effect. So anyway, he had his worst performance of the year against the Cougs. Luvuu playing in front of his family, Frankie, for the first time in his college career. He's a senior, right? This is just an incredible story, and you may have heard this. This week. American Samoa senior. Frankie picked off Costello with 15 seconds left in the game to seal the victory, 24-21, to snap the Cardinal 5-game winning streak. Huge play, huge with his family, his mom, his dad, and I don't know if it was his brothers or sisters, but there were 4 of them in Martin for the first time ever, parents outside the American Samoa. Ever outside the American Samoa. They have never traveled. I think they've traveled to the Philippines, but never have they come over to the United States. So here they are. Now, this is, money. I mean, your annual average salary is $10,000 a year in American Samoa. So this is a big deal. Round trip tickets, aircraft, $1,500 plane tickets times 4. What is that? $6K to get to Martin, to get to the United States, and then his son seals the win with 15 seconds left. Are you kidding me? Not only does he seal the win, it's interception. Frankie Luvuu. Not only that, it's senior day. I mean, they brought a Leia for him at the press conference. If you saw it, it was a beautiful Leia. What happens if we would have lost? I asked my wife. What she said, well, his mom or dad would have given it to him anyway. I mean, here's your land. I'm sorry you lost, but no, and it's especially, when you go to Hawaii, they have their own flowers, and when you go to American Samoa, they have their own flowers over there. By the way, Leach was over there on an awards ceremony on something from one of the coaches, and he actually met the family. They were hanging out the airport. Only 2 flights a week going to American Samoa, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal when a lot of people are working part-time and they all have like 3 jobs, and so when the aircraft comes in from the States, it's a big deal. And the Luvuu family hung out to meet Mike, to shake his hand, say, hey, my son plays for you. Yeah. Great to meet you. And it was kind of a coincidence. I mean, back then, when Mike Leach stepped off the plane, and I don't know if he was coming or going, the family greeted them, kind of on a proactive situation. They wanted to get in front and just say, hey, here we, welcome, I'm the parents. And this, they were clueless that they didn't know what was going to happen, that they were going to come to Martin Stadium on senior day, and they weren't going to come. And Frankie insisted to his family, he just kind of pushed and begged, and that's a lot of money. It's not just the plane ticket at $1,500 round trip. You've got hotel, you've got food, you've got rental car, you've got everything else. So what a way to write a story. It couldn't be a better ending story. Yeah, emotional game though for all the seniors, 20 of them. 14 were Leach's recruits, really, from the class of 13. All of them saw from the bottom to the top. I mean, in 2013, right, it wasn't like Washington State was the top of the Pac-12, right, in North. And so they've seen from the bottom to the top. Cougs honored their senior class before the game, and 3 seniors who suffered the season injuries, of course, Peyton Pallure, Nate DeRuyter, and Robert Lewis. They raised the flag right before the game, and Luke rebounded, really. He pulled everything, he got pulled and benched from the week before from the Arizona game, and here he was. He rebounded his final home game as a Coug. And he does it. And he sets the Pac-12 passing record. All right. This is amazing. We're 8-2. He sets a record from his last home game as a Coug. He sets the record. And Frankie Luvuu, and we're 8-2. I mean, it's just what an amazing situation. So he dedicated the win to his grandfather, Jack, who's, by the way, flew home to Utah on Monday to go to the funeral. David Shaw actually came up to Luke after the game and had some personal comments. Now, normally, it would be Shaw going to Leach, congratulating and having a few words, but David Shaw, the head coach, took the time to focus and and find Luke right after the game, and he had some kind words to him, congratulated him. I think he said, "Hey, good luck in the pros. I'm going to be rooting for you this time out." He's got a lot of respect for Luke. So it's the last time he got to play in Martin Stadium, and the way he won against the opponent Stanford, first time we beat Stanford in 10 years at Martin. We won out. I mean, the way we did it, great opponent. Emotions came together. And Luke didn't think about this prior to the game as far as the records or Stanford or senior day. He didn't let that get in his way. But after the win, he allowed himself to think about it, and he was really emotionally. He gave credit to Jim Mastro and Coach Eric. These are Coach Jim Mastro and Eric Melly for just from the very beginning. Great ride. It's not over yet, right? We've got 3 games left, right? So 3, possibly 4. But anyway, so Luke went 34 of 48 for 337 yards, 3 touchdowns. Through a costly pick interception, Stanford linebacker Bobby Okereke returned for a TD in the third quarter. Overall, though, it was an entertaining back-and-forth game and really nail-biting. But obviously, Cougs prevailed, and Frankie Luvuu just sealed it off. I mean, just incredible, right? So, remember, we were trailing 21-17 in the third, and then Okereke ran his interception back, 52 yards for the score. And the Cougs offense went through kind of a dry spell, right? We punted twice, and the defense kept things together, though, right? Literally like all season long, almost, forcing consecutive 3-and-outs to get the ball back with 12 minutes left in the fourth. Slowly, the Cougs offense emerged again, produced the best drive of the afternoon in the fourth quarter. And with Stanford only rushing 4 men and dropping everyone else in the coverage, James Williams took off in the middle for a 12-yarder and then picked up another one for a 9-yarder. And then Tay Martin caught a 17-yard pass on a crossing route and caught the ball for 3 yards for a first down. And then Luke hit Jamal Morrow up the middle for 20 yards. And it was Morrow again, in fact, picking up 16 yards and the Cougs to the Stanford 11-yard line. So 1st and 10, and Falk hit Calvin on another crossing route, and you remember how Calvin took off in the end zone with a front flip in the end zone on that 11-yard touchdown catch, and allowed the Cougs to the lead 24-21 to retake the lead, and that was it. So it was a 11-play, 94-yard drive. Luke's last, and all those seniors' last drive, 94 yards, 11 plays, 35 seconds left. The defense iced the win. And third down, Costello's pass landed in Luvu's arms. Like I said, Frankie right in his arms, sealed the deal for the sellout crowd at Martin. Stanford is now 6-3. And they scored on the second quarter with a 52-yard rushing touchdown from Bryce Love. That was Bryce's Love only long run of the day. We shut him down, like I said, in the second half, and allowing him only 4 yards on 6 carries. So the Cougs defense held Stanford to a season low of 198 yards, offensive yards, sacked Costello twice, and allowed the Cardinal only 3 of 12 third down conversions. So Cougs led 14-7 at halftime on touchdown passes from Falk to TMJ and Renard Bell, and extended the lead 17-7. And then Eric Powell hit a 41-yard field goal in the third quarter. Costello went 9 of 20 for 105 yards and picked a touchdown run on his second career start. So speaking of Powell, Eric Powell, he helped save what might have been he did 2 kick return touchdowns, as saved him, as he was the last man standing and tackled Stanford's Cameron Scarlett, who ripped through the kickoff coverage for 30 yards and on one return in the third quarter, and 47 yards on a second big return in the fourth quarter. And Powell brought those guys down. I mean, can you imagine? He brought Cameron Scarlett down. our kicker, so Eric Powell is having such a great year. Last year he had a bad start. He's up for an award on a finalist, 15 finalist, an award for this, but he's proving to be one of the best in the Pac-12. And like I said, he's up for a reward. And remember, he had that 56-yard field goal a couple weeks ago, Eric Powell. So good going, Powell. Hey, we're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about the Utes of Utah next, right here on the Podcast COUG.
Hey, COUG fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the Podcast COUG Radio Network. The Podcast COUG is your weekly COUG On Demand show, featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at PodcastCoug.com.
Everybody, welcome back to the Podcast COUG. I am James Laurie, and thanking you for listening to the Podcast COUG every single week. And those of you who have subscribed, you're getting the weekly episodes coming to you automatically. Thank you so much. And hey, we are in the second half of week 11, episode 11, the Utah Utes. Let's talk about Utah. Our game, of course, Saturday afternoon, Pac-12 Networks, 2:30. And the question is, did Utah? Do they have a comeback from last week? The Utes had 500 yards of offense on their win over UCLA the week before, right, last week. But UCLA is a bad team. They're soft. They're not. UCLA is not a good football team. Yeah, they can beat Oregon State probably. Yeah. But they're the bottom of the South. So, Utah is all excited because they had a great win over UCLA. No, they didn't turn a corner, okay? Utah, respectively, they're 5-4. They're a good team. Don't get me wrong. They're, it's going to be tough. That's a great stadium down there, by the way. And like I said, 2:30 at Rice-Eccles Stadium, in Salt Lake. I love to go skiing there. My favorite is Colorado, but I'm a skier, and I'll tell you, I love the canyons. That's my favorite of all the ski resorts in Utah and Salt Lake. The O2 Winter Olympics, right? This is a big stadium. Even Leach said, this is they have a great stadium. They had the opening, the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies. At that time, they renamed the stadium the Rice-Eccles Olympic Stadium. So anyway, Pac-12 Network, we talked about how Utah had a great field day over UCLA, 48-17. We're favored by 1 to 1.5. Cougs are favored. Last time we were down there, last time the teams met, can you believe this? 2014, 3 years ago. Halliday, touchdown passes in the fourth quarter. Connor was there. We beat Utah 28-27. 50,000 in attendance on ESPN 3 years ago. Wow. It seems like a long time since we've played Utah. It really has. Kyle Whittingham, coaching his 14th year. He's like the dean of the Pac-12 for coaches. He's got a record of 104-50. That's great. 104 wins and 50 losses. He's led the team, the Utes, to 3 straight bowl wins. And, they snapped their 4-game losing streak last week. Like I said, they beat UCLA 48-17. They put up a season high of 509 yards. Whittingham indicated afterwards that the game might have put Utah back on track. I don't think so. Like I said, UCLA is soft, okay? And, UCLA's got a great brand. In fact, I think some of the guys, hey, I got an offer from UCLA and I'm going there. It's one thing to go there and get accepted. You got to play. You got to play hard. And UCLA's got talent on their team, but I just don't think they're playing hard. And, of course, Jim Mora. You can say goodbye to Mr. Moore. It's unfortunate in this business you get fired for poor performance. Somebody's got to be at the bottom, okay? You're going to fire the Oregon State coach every single couple of years because Oregon State can never rise to the occasion. I think Corey Hallvell will get him at least to be competitive. But, no, somebody's got to be at the bottom. Not everybody can be a champion or a 10-win team, 11-win team or 8 wins. But Jim Mora, no question, this is his last season at UCLA. So, no, this is not getting Utah back on track just because they beat a soft, poor, weak UCLA team that's really not playing for their coach right now. UCLA's really bad. But Utah is good. I don't think that, Whittingham is saying, hey, we're back on track. We're back. Well, let's see if they're back. We're going to find out somewhere around 5:30 on Saturday if Utah is back or not. So it's going to be a great test this weekend against Washington State, right? It's going to be this is going to be their strongest opponent, I think. I mean, they did play USC, so this is going to be one of their best opponents. Quarterback Tyler Huntley, sophomore, he beat out Troy Williams for the starting job this offseason, but, he missed the Stanford and USC games due to a little bit of a hand injury. Last week's UCLA game marked Huntley's first win on his return, and he got a big day, 15 to 22 passes, 234 yards, 4 TDs. Huntley has he's completed 67% of his passes. Not a bad quarterback. 67% completion rate, 12 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. They've got a wide receiver, Darren Carrington. Carrington was actually kicked off the Oregon Duck football team last summer, and he transferred to Utah and has literally flourished his senior season. Don't you have to sit out a year? I don't get this. Was he kicked off last year or the year before? But he has literally flourished at Utah. He leads the Utes with 58 receptions, 830 yards, 6 touchdowns. This is Darren Carrington, wide receiver. So look out for Darren Carrington, their top wide receiver, and he's doing fine. And what's interesting, this is kind of a homecoming for Luke Falk, right? His two high school coaches, his football coach and his basketball coach, they're going to be in the stands, right, on Saturday. They can't wait. This is a big deal. They're only driving an hour and a half from Logan, something like 80 miles or so. Coaches say that those two coaches, by the way, the basketball coach and the football coach, they're just saying, hey, everybody's going to show up. We're 84 miles away from Logan. It's the hometown hero. They've been following Luke, of course, for 4 years. They've got the whole community going on. The half of Logan is going to be at the stadium, drive an hour and a half, pretty special. They said there's going to be about 100 of just guys that are hardcore Luke followers from Utah are going to be there. So that's the allotment the ticket office gave Luke, that sold. They sold a bunch of tickets to Utah COUG fans. So over the summer, not just recently, I mean this past summer, the COUG ticket office sold a boatload of tickets to Utah fans for COUG fans, right? So that's going to be interesting. And lots of fans down there for Luke Falk, of course, his family, Annalise, the 2 girls, the sisters, and And of course, the dad, they're all probably all be there. Like, gosh, they've been going to so many games in Pullman, though. I'm so happy they don't have to travel very far. Special game. Luke Falk is the big star coming back home, so it's pretty special. This is his last time in a college COUG coming to Utah. So pretty special to see the progress throughout his football career and his personal life. And I'm speaking on behalf of these coaches. They're saying that he's developed into a person who he is. They were able to attest and a chance to get to know, Luke at a younger age and just to see him flourish over the years. And what's interesting is Luke's high school football coach, he had no Power 5 coaches would listen to his pitch. Nobody would be pitching him. When he was pitching all these Power 5 schools, nobody would give this high school coach, a football coach, a time of day. Nobody. And so, they walk on, and so that's it. So he thinks the invited walk-on and the Pac-12 record is just thrilling, and it really is if you think about it. If you're one of their coaches and friends, and you've been following Luke for 4 years, and he was a depth number 5 or 6 in the depth chart of quarterback when he arrived at Washington State, and then cream rises to the top. So it's been quite spectacular to watch Luke's perseverance and grit. So he, like I said, he showed up like 6th or 7th on the depth chart, and I don't think anyone's ever anticipated Luke to be a starting quarterback. And not only that, but to be the most decorated quarterback in the history of the Pac-12. Right? The cream rises to the top. So they're so excited. I hope Luke does well. It would be just another chapter, another Frankie Luvuu story with Luke coming back to his hometown, being a star record setter for the Pac-12, being a huge walk-on, being a quarterback that no Power 5 school would listen to. The high school coach didn't give him a shot. And we get the story. If you really know the story, Luke, changed high schools a couple of times. When you start changing high schools within 2 years, you're just going to be off the radar. Simply, he was just off the radar. And so when the media, when ESPN or Big Fox talks about he was a walk-on, well, yeah, he was a walk-on, right, but he made some decisions by changing high schools, and he may have not thought about that. When you start moving around like that, you just get off radar for a while. It takes a while to get back up to the top, no problem. When you've got it, right? When you have a talent, you've got it, and that's it. You either have it or you don't. So when you have it, no problem. Just takes a little time to wake people up. So that's exactly what happened. So anyway, it's going to be very exciting on Saturday afternoon. And then we're looking ahead, one game at a time. Yeah, right. One game at a time. Not right now. We're talking about AC, Apple Cup in Seattle. The Huskies are talking about, hey, we're going to be, all the Husky fans should be rooting for the Cougs on Saturday to beat Utah because they haven't played anybody. They have not played anybody, right? So they're rooting for the Cougs. And why? Because they want a stronger opponent. They want a ranked opponent coming into the AC, to the Apple Cup. So if they probably, will, although if the football gods, and that's for next episode on the podcast COUG, if the football gods have their way, and I say that plural, maybe the football god, has our way for favor, then it's our game, right? It's our game. Otherwise, the Huskies, typically win the Apple Cup. You know that, right? So, but Huskies want a ranked team that they can beat so they can possibly edge their way into the college football playoffs, all right? So I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to get to the playoffs, but it's possible. Speaking about Apple Cup, the 115th Apple Cup party, hey, COUG fans all over November 24th. And you know what? I'm going to, if we beat Utah, that's the neat thing about this Apple Cup party at Bell Harbor International Conference Center. This is on the waterfront in Seattle. And usually it's dark, right? Because it's, this time of year, it gets dark at 4:30. But huge Apple Cup rally. If you buy your tickets now, they have a 7-day refund policy. So you can get your money back. So if you want to be a closet Coug, and if we lose to the Utes down in Salt Lake, you can get your money back, right? So if they win, if we beat Utah, absolutely, the Podcast Coug is going to be there. And I'm going to hand out my postcards about the Podcast Coug. So, it's kind of fun to promote this non-commercial 30-minute program. Apple Cup Rally, Apple Cup Rally at the Bell Harbor International Conference Center. First time in a long time we've had a rally there. If you remember, it was years ago. Registration is on now. You probably got the emails if you're a CAF members. If you're a CAF member, you got the emails, and you got the entry fee includes hors d'oeuvres and a meal, a drink ticket, and additional drinks are available to purchase. They want you to bring cash. The bookie's going to be there. You don't need cash for the bookie to buy your Coug gear. And Butch is going to be there. The band is going to be there. I would imagine the cheerleaders are going to be there. It's $20 to get in the door. If you've got a teenager, it's $10, or a little kid, it's $10, right? So that's cool. And that's the 24th on Friday, downtown Seattle. Again, they do have a refund policy. So if the Cougs lose on Utah and you want to go back in your closet and not be, I don't blame you. You know why? Apple Cup is a big deal. Party should be fun. It's going to be jacked up. So the hype is getting close. So here we go. But we got one game to take care of, and that's down at Salt Lake City, and we're going to have fun. Hey, that's it for this episode on the Podcast Coug. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the Podcast Coug. If you like what you're going to hear, we're going to catch you next week. Have a great Saturday, right? And go Cougs.
You've been listening to the Podcast Coug Radio Network with your host, James Lowry. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the Podcast Coug Radio Network. Find us at podcastcoug.com.
T